Welcome back, Madera Companies, to our podcast, Touch Base. I'm Josh Haynes, and I'm excited to welcome in a couple of guys who work for Quext, our up-and-coming, already off the ground and going apartment technology company. So joining me today is Larry LaFreniere. He is the Vice President of Broadband and Video, and then Omar Sandoval, who is the Vice President of Technical Operations. Did I get that correct?
That's correct.
Absolutely. Guys, your titles are a mouthful. It just
too many words.
You guys are super important. So I'm excited to have you here. Excited to have
here.
you joining this conversation.
Yeah, appreciate you having us.
Absolutely. So, as always, and you guys have seen this before, but we try to humanize you, want to learn a little bit about you, and realize that, hey, we're all real people, just doing our best. And so, Larry, I'm going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got to the Madera Companies.
Sure, I'm happy to. A little bit about myself. Grew up in Michigan, Kalamazoo area, and always wanted to be a pilot.
Wow.
So I was accepted and went to the Air Force Academy, moved to Colorado for 4 years of school there. Loved Colorado. My pilot training station was here in Lubbock, Texas, Reese Air Force Base. So I came here for pilot training, and I stayed here and was an instructor pilot in a T-38. There's an aircraft here on the South Loop. It's a white rocket-looking thing. That's the plane I flew, supersonic jet trainer.
Can I ask you a quick question? Was it disappointing to move from the mountains of Colorado to the plains of South?
No, it wasn't, because I got to fly those jets.
Okay, there you go.
That was what was exciting. And West Texas is a great place to train pilots.
Yes,
so
sir.
we enjoyed that.
Yeah.
After my active duty career lasted 7.5 years, I went into a civilian job, worked for Texas Instruments building missile radars. And that was exciting. Got to meet a lot of really, really smart rocket scientists. We won the Cold War, and I thought, well, what's my next gig going to be? So a friend of mine had moved up and was working for a company called MCI up in Colorado. And I was hired and moved up there, took my family, and that's really where our kids were raised. We spent about 14 years living in Colorado Springs, enjoying those mountains. Back to that.
Yeah.
As we developed things in the internet, part of the mergers and acquisitions in telecom, we were acquired by a company out of Jackson, Mississippi, and there's a lot of history around this, ethical problems. A couple people went to jail.
Wow.
The CEO and CFO both went and got in prison. I was fortunate enough to exit just prior to that and came back to Lubbock to work.
And of course, you weren't a part of the bad
No.
Well, he says he wasn't.
All my friends were like, "How did you know?"
Yeah, I was going to say, funny how he knew to exit.
I said, I've been thinking about it really ever since 9/11 had occurred. We've been thinking about moving closer to family. My wife's from here. All of her family lives here. So we moved back here and worked for the cable operator here at the time. And I've been in cable ever since.
Wow.
And that's how I got to meet Omar, was in that job.
Yeah.
And after working in cable for about 15 years together, another acquisition occurred to that company. And again, it was a time for me to look for new opportunities. And that was when Dave Marcinkowski and Thomas Mandry approached me about joining the Madera Companies, helping them with technologies. They were looking at doing a managed Wi-Fi deal with a big cable operator. And that was in 2018, and we hit the ground running and been doing that ever since.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. It's good to hear that from you. Omar, tell us about you.
Yeah, so originally from Clovis, New Mexico, America, born and raised there.
Do you have to preface it with America?
It's a small little town. If you blink, you'll pass right through it.
Yeah.
But no, born and raised there. Decided to join the Marine Corps. So I had a very good run in the Marine Corps. Got to travel, went to a lot of different places. My last duty station ended up being in Hawaii. So from a small town guy to live in Hawaii for several years, this is where I met my wife.
You poor guy had to live in Hawaii.
It was tough. Board shorts and tank tops and flip-flops. I don't think I owned a pair of pants until I moved back to the mainland. But nonetheless, it's where I met my wife.
Okay.
We have 4 kids. I am a grandfather, a grandfather of 3 grandchildren. Great, lots of fun, right? Get a pump full of sugar, and at the end of the day, you get to send them back home.
Yeah, thank you for that. As the guy who has that happen to him.
Absolutely. So we decided to move back to the mainland, right? Making that long trip back and forth. All of our families were here. And our parents weren't getting any younger, so God forbid something happened. We couldn't get here quick enough. So we decided to make that move back to the mainland here. And being from Clovis, I was very familiar with the Lubbock area, and my wife's from Indiana, so we wanted to find a place to live where we were very fond of Lubbock. It's a great place to raise a family. It has pretty much everything that you need. If there's something that's not here, you know, Dallas is not too far away. It's just something. Here in Texas, you can drive miles and it's still close, right? Because we're used to doing that. So initially, when we decided to move to Lubbock, my wife's a nurse, so for her it's very easy to transition to a medical district here. But you know, Lubbock had changed so much in all the years that I've been gone. I kind of wanted to take a break to find out, okay, where do we want to buy our home? Where do we want our kids to go to school? So I kind of took a little bit of a sabbatical there to make sure that we found the right neighborhood, the mic, you know, plugged in the right areas where we wanted to be for the kids in school. And a funny story is we were driving down Indiana, and she's like, COX. She's like, I think they're hiring. And then I was like, wait a minute, what do you mean? So you think I need a job right now? You know, we still got to get the house, we got to do all this stuff. And I was like, well, I don't want to get a job right now. You know, we planned for this move and everything. And she's like, oh, you think it's just as easy as walking in and get a job? And I was like, yeah, pretty much. Right? At the time, just a little pride there and stuff. So I walked in, and it happened to be Cox Communications in Lubbock. And I walked in, and eventually the person that I interviewed with ended up being one of my bosses and a really close friend of mine. I came in, I applied, and they said, you know, typically it takes 3 to 4 weeks. You'll hear back from us. I heard back on that following Monday. So I was ramped up into my cable communications career. So like Larry mentioned earlier, I'd been in that, you know, from that point, I'd been in for, you know, 20 plus years for that. We were acquired, and Larry and I worked together for many years there. Dave Gillis and a lot of the team that are part of the Madera and the Quext team were all part of there as well. Great group of guys, did a lot of stuff from, you know, field operations, installation, to IT, to DOCSIS, to switching and routing, and all the network elements that we had that actually Larry and I were both involved in the whole time there. Through several acquisitions that had happened, you know, it came time for a point in my life where it was like, okay, it's time to do something different. So I ended up moving over into a company called Xeris One, which at the time, you know, the whole time as you know, as the core group of leadership kind of went in all different directions, we all still keep in touch. You know, a lot of these guys are more than just coworkers. They're really great friends, and we keep in touch. And Larry at the time was like, hey, you know, we're thinking about doing this. I don't think Quext was even a name yet at the time. It was just a thought and an idea. And, you know, we had kept in touch over there. So when I had left, I went over to Xeris to help them start a new arm of the business, which was technical professional services. So in doing that too, we were able to become technical partners with Quext as Larry and the team were kicking off Connect, and Trey and those guys were looking at IoT. We had worked with them over the year, getting that product, you know, ramped up, deployed. We did some deployments, you know, brainstorming. It felt like, even though I was with another organization, it felt like I went back a few years when we were all together, and we just picked it right back up. Right? Yeah. It felt like, you know, we all know the way each other thinks. We're all cut from the same cloth. We look and approach things at the same time. But also, you know, there's times where we don't all agree, but we've worked together for so many years that we know how to get through that, right? Yeah. Which I think is very important to the dynamics of a team when you're building a team. So working with Larry and Trey and those guys on the Quext product lines, came a point in time earlier this year where Larry and Dave approached me and was like, hey, we have a great opportunity where it's a success for both sides of the house. Xeris still does work with us, but you know, you do work with Quext. If you can come in, you get the best of both worlds. You get to work with both companies still. You're just moving from one side of the table to the other. So obviously these guys know that I would follow them into a burning house. We work really well together, so I made my move over to work for the Quext. At that point. Yeah.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Now, one of the things we did in the first season was we talked through like values, and we talked about like what kind of grounds us and why we do the things that we do. So knowing at least a little bit about both of your pasts and some of the things I know I've learned about both of you, also knowing about your dedication to the two military branches that you served in, like you believe in giving yourself to a bigger purpose than yourself. And 100%. So I'd love to hear from both of you kind of like how you implement that higher purpose motivation into what you do on an everyday basis. And so I don't really care which one of you goes first. Just,
I'll take it first.
Yeah.
The fact of I think, being raised in an area where there wasn't a lot of military in Michigan, I was in an agricultural area. And moving here in Lubbock is a big agricultural community. And working in the cable industry, we found out there's a lot of similarities between farmers and soldiers. And the big similarity is that the job is never done at 5 p.m. The job goes on 24/7, 365. And so we have been known to be on conference calls literally that lasted several days to try to resolve a technical problem. And while maybe you can't make it be staying on your feet for 72 hours, we hand off, we'll tag team. We've also been a part of every operation we get involved with, not just at an executive level, but on a hands-on level. So for example, Madera's first 26 communities that got managed Wi-Fi in Dallas-Fort Worth, there were 8 that were in the first tranche. And nearly every person who's a part of the Quext team now, all of us went to Dallas-Fort Worth for that week, the first week. We were boots on the ground. We were there more as observers because obviously the team that was installing it's their job. But by being there, we were not only able to catch some things that we wanted changed, but also learn some things and then give some feedback. And we've helped improve that. So I think you see community in that as a value. You also see the continuous never-ending improvement. And we partnered with the technical companies that we do business with to get involved in their operations and give them our feedback and work in a collaborative way to make their products better. We also established those relationships with the property staff and even some of the residents, because we were literally, as we were escorting the installers, we were in and out of apartments. It gave me personally a great introduction to Madera's properties. I learned a lot about Benbrook and a lot about Dallas-Fort Worth, the geography. I lived there for a few years when I worked for Texas Instruments, but I hadn't been all over like that. Plus, it was fun.
Yeah.
And we built a lot. It was a good team building exercise for I think there was 8 of us that went out there.
Yeah. It says something huge to me, and I think it does to our property staff. I think for people who are paying attention, when your leaders don't just sit up in the ivory tower and they come down and they join all of what's going on and they want to be a part of the solutions at the everyday urgent levels. So I appreciate that a lot. How about you, Omar?
Yeah, I think, Larry, just to touch on some of the things he said, I always refer to the staff out I call them our family in the field, right? The only way to really get better is to solicit constant feedback, Obviously, we love the great feedback, but we also know that hand in hand with that, there comes some not so great feedback. And that's okay, right? We want to hear that. We need to hear that because that's the only way that we can get better. But also, echoing what Larry said, when we talk about taking the opportunity to go out there and really not just hear them, but you have to listen, and that we're not just there to hear all the positive things.
Yeah.
We need to hear the negative things, right? Because we can't fix it or we can't address it or we can't get better unless that you're providing us that feedback, right? The other part of it is building the relationship with that, in our community, since to speak to that point, we know they're busy. 100% they're busy. They're responsible for taking care of their communities. They're responsible for taking care of their residents. But we want to go out there and let them know, hey, Josh, you're not out there by yourself.
Yeah.
We're here for you.
Yeah.
If there's any escalations, if there's any issues, reach out to us. If we can't directly address them, we know who can, right? So we always want to make sure that we have that open door of communication with them. Hats off, superb regional VPs, area managers, the PMs, the APMs, the leasing agents. I think you said earlier on one of your casts how it's really important to even know the most frontline employee that we have.
Yep.
The cleaning staff, the maintenance guys, all those people are a contributor to the end result, which is closing a deal and having a great community and great residents there. So, going back on that, it kind of hits our improvements as well to make sure that we're getting better.
Yeah.
Every time we're getting better.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And speaking of Connect and Benbrook and all the things that you guys have got to do there, we had John and Kagan on, and they walked us through websites and kind of how that worked. And then we had Trey and we had Sean come on, and they talked through IoT and they talked through digital human.
You had those two guys on?
I know. We had them on. And the B-roll with those two guys is going to be awesome because the bloopers were pretty great.
Yeah.
But I would also throw out, you guys are kind of our Connect wizards. And so kind of talk us through like what you're doing with Connect, how this improves the lives of our residents, how it improves the services that our property staff can deliver. What makes us different? Like what is so great about this product specifically?
Sure. I think one of the things that separates Quext Connect from the other parts of Quext technologies is sometimes Quext Connect is actually the service provider. We put you install fiber optic, network cable, Wi-Fi routers, everything, right? We build it and operate it. That's one of the aspects that we do. But before that, the first thing that Quext does is looks at the property, because you got to understand that unique properties, what's the situation there? They may have an underlying agreement already in place that prevents them from doing what we would do as Quext Connect. And so we've discovered in some cases they have a telecom contract that won't expire until 2026. And it prohibits them from putting in a third-party bulk managed Wi-Fi. And so we don't stop there. We go back to who's that contract with, and we negotiate a deal with them. So we partnered with 2 major telcos, 2 big cable operators. We've got 2 smaller operators. So we look at the opportunity and we say, what's the best fit for that community? And it obviously ties to the owners a lot, because they're making a huge commitment when they sign one of these bulk agreements. It commits them to pay for every single unit every month for usually 6 to 10 years. And it's a lot of money. Obviously, they don't want to do that without giving it a lot of thought. And that's where we come along. We're the consultants, and we now have about 13,000 units that are in a bulk managed Wi-Fi contract.
Yeah.
We got about 2,000 more in construction and about 4,000 in our sales pipeline. So we've got about a lot of scale. We can confidently tell anybody this is not our first rodeo, because we did this for 15 years in the cable industry before,
right.
And now we've been doing it for 3 or 4 years here. The biggest value that I see for residents is the fact that, everybody, the first thing they do when you're going in and checking out a new place, you look at the bars on your phone to see how's my cell coverage.
Yeah.
Because in some high-rise and other parts, you go to a shopping mall or something, you lose connectivity to the cell tower. So they want to see their signal strength for that. But then the next thing they do is, oh, you got Wi-Fi here? Yeah, what's your Wi-Fi password? Speed test, right? First thing they're going to do. If you pass both of those, you've got a prospect who's probably going to become a resident. You fail on either one, and you might see somebody who walks away.
Yeah, and we've talked about this in the past. I mean, even Dave Marcinkowski and I talked about this last season in season 1 when it comes to this has become an essential. Like, Wi-Fi is an essential. And 2020 with all the stuff that hit with COVID in schools and things like that, we were shown Wi-Fi is an essential.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of people call it the 4th utility, right?
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what it is nowadays.
I think it's interesting to kind of see this journey as a whole, and kind of starting where Quext was and the people like yourselves that they've brought in. And so over the years, and you mentioned this a minute ago with feedback and things like that, as we kind of talked about needing to know how Quext and its products are being received and how it impacts people. What have you learned in terms of like hurdles you guys have had to overcome, places you've had success? Like, what have you learned with these implementations that have better equipped you to continue down this journey?
First thing I learned was how difficult it is to invade everybody's home.
Yeah.
We're really sensitive to the fact that this is a person's residence. They have pets, they have family, they have personal belongings. And so in negotiating with our partners who are going to be actually doing the installs, I would ask the question, how many times are you going to need to go into that unit? And I heard 3 or 4. And I said, we need to get that down to 1 or 2 because it's just that much of a priority for Madera. And so I really came to appreciate the fact that this is sacred ground, and you should just go in there willy-nilly. The other thing I forgot about was not everybody works 9 to 5. And so when we think we're being polite and we're knocking on the door at 9:30, you may have just got home and are going to sleep. So it became a big wake-up call to me. I took a lot of things for granted, and I learned a lot about being sensitive to the residents and obviously then the staff, right? Because the staff is right there. The other thing was how something like a pandemic can throw you a curveball, and you need to figure out ways to work through it. And so we faced not only the challenges of, can I enter this unit do I need to be masked? Do I need to wear gloves? Do I need to be a hazmat outfit or not? We're not going to enter at all. Do we ask the residents to leave while we're there? All those things to then the supply chain issues that we're having to deal with in our schedules. And we have it's a challenge, right? We've committed to launch this product, say, in November, and you just moved in, right? It's the 1st of November, and you didn't get coverage from somebody else because you were told, hey, this thing's coming in November. Well, a hiccup hits, and it doesn't launch until February.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not a real happy experience. So we have learned a lot about, and that's why I think from a competitive perspective, Quext has the operator perspective that another service provider telco wouldn't.
Yeah.
And it adds tremendously to how much we can help with, to Omar's point, those owners who are just too busy, preoccupied, and scared, and not sure this is a good fit. And just, hey, we got you covered. We got, we've been doing this for quite a few years, and we got a track record. We'll show you the numbers. We'll show you our financials, how pro forma, take the names and social security numbers off of there. But here, this is what it looks like, and you can be confident that you're going to make money on this deal.
Yeah, I highly appreciate your sensitivity to the individual and how they feel with the intrusiveness of their own place. And then again, as with everything, you highlight the importance of adaptability in the processes and the journeys that we go through when something hits us out of the blue that we don't see coming. On top of that, and we go back to that intrusiveness piece, I love the fact that you guys care so much for the property staffs, how they're having to do their day and work through that.
Absolutely.
That's a big piece. Talk about hurdles and things you've learned.
Well, and I think, at the end of the day, the property staff is the face to our resident in the community, right? They're the deal closers. They're the ones that when all the smoke settles and the contractors are done and everybody leaves, they're the ones that are still there, right? Facing, or not facing, but the face to our residents. And we want to make sure that we have done our absolute best when we leave. And, obviously we're continuing to support them after we leave, but that we feel really good about how it went, right? I mentioned it earlier, and people laugh at me because I'm always saying Murphy's alive and well. Sometimes I feel like he's riding shotgun with me all the time, but it's how you respond to it. In a world of mechanics or technology, there's always going to be gotchas. I mean, sometimes you have your iPhone that just isn't for some reason downloading the way it normally would. But we try to make sure that we mitigate a lot of those things that happen. I think one of the big things for us was hurdles that we fine tune and try to be better about, and that's just not working with the staff, but it's working with our technical partners and contractors and vendors, is the communication piece, right? If I tell you, hey, Josh, we're going to be entering your unit tomorrow, I better be entering your unit tomorrow,
right?
Not get another notification like, oh, sorry, we messed up. We're going to do it. Oh, it's tomorrow. And that was one of the things that I think that we really pushed to our technical partners and people that we work with, that when you give a timeline and you give a schedule, to me, that is it.
Yeah.
You're assigning that in your blood, and the property staff is going to take it for face value, and they're going to do that. Is there hiccups along the way? Yeah, there's sometimes where we went, hey, there's, Larry brought up COVID earlier. We didn't know, but this person has COVID, so we can't enter. Well, we're going to have to go back and reschedule. Or they knew we were coming, but they forgot to put their dog in the kennel. So we're going to have to go back and reschedule. But for the most part, our drive is communication is key. And it's not just to our residents, but from our perspective, to our staff. If we tell them that we're going to do something, then we need to do it as well. So I think the communication part is key, even to people like Ali and Jacob and all those guys, when we're telling them things that are going to take place. We try our hardest to make sure that we're doing that part. And then echoing one more thing that Larry said when we talked about having these owner-operators trust in us that we know what we're doing. I always like to go back and say that we're not willing to do something that we haven't done already or been willing to do ourselves, which I can guarantee you that in all the facets of what we do in Connect, we've done it multiple times. Wasn't at a level of a community, but it was at a level of a city, right? So I think that's key to make sure that they feel confident enough in us, and we have a proven track record to show them that this is our first rodeo. We've done this multiple times and have great success stories behind it.
Guys, I just want to thank you both so much for coming on, being a part of this, explaining not only what you do, but also with the kindness with which you do care for the staffs that you get to work with and different vendors. And so thank you both for joining
having us, Josh. Your videos have been great to watch.
Yeah, they're awesome.
It's been fun. It's given me a chance to learn a lot of people and a lot of things that are going on. And so
I'm just wondering why it's taking so long for you to ask us to come do this.
Oh, Well, there's an answer for that. Do we want to put that in front of everybody?
I was just joking. I was just joking.
No, just kidding.
No. I think it's great. We do have another Quext IT service. I know Brent mentioned that earlier that we'll save for another one, but just know that it's coming to a community near you.
Yes, and we'll have you guys on again to talk about that.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
Madera friends, thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll have another podcast for you the next week. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day and keep up the good work.
Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving.